Bring on the
Call it.
Kool-Aid man. Maybe he'll call. Oh, yeah.
Hey Fixers, I'm Dr. Jeanette Benegas, the owner of Fix SLP, a grassroots advocacy firm here to challenge the status quo in speech language pathology by driving real change from insurance regulations to removing barriers that prevent full autonomy like the CCC. This podcast is your space to learn, engage, and take action in the field of speech language pathology. We don't wait for change, we make it, so let's fix SLP. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Jeanette. I have Preston with me, and again this week, Elizabeth Nielsen, our content coordinator and the person on the team who takes on ASHA finances for us. We are digging into ASHA's revenue this week. It's gonna be good. We just had a little powwow to kind of figure out what we were gonna highlight for you. Before we jump in, Gator Grad09 said, "We are a must listen for SLPs." So this is a review from Apple. Like Jeanette said recently, not all SLPs are on social media. That's me. I'm grateful that she and Preston drop a new episode every week to talk about the Fix SLP movement and share true information about the changes that are happening and so needed in our profession. Thanks. So I've been mentioning that. Keep sharing us, keep sharing this podcast, keep rating and reviewing. We have to reach the people who are not on socials. It's one of the remaining ways that we need to grow, and we can't afford a mail campaign like Pro Liability or ASHA. That's pretty expensive. We don't have that kind of money because you're sending all your money to ASHA. So we'll tell you how we know that in a few minutes when we talk about revenue. How are you guys this week?
Good. How are you?
Oh, and by the way, I'm here.
I thought I said I had Preston with me
You
and
may
Elizabeth.
have. I'm just messing with you. Sometimes you forget,
I
and
always forget.
I really enjoy those times that you forget. It's fun, and then when you actually do remember, it's still fun to make you think that you forgot. So, hi.
Because I have the short-term memory of a pea, literally. So, all right, one more thing I wanted to do. Preston, I've got another mini man meltdown for you.
Great.
Elizabeth and Preston have not heard the meltdown. I screened it, and this week it actually is kind of a meltdown. It's a sad one. So we're gonna join this person, and I have a few things to say after.
I just wanted to take a quick moment to spread light on my cry in my car moment. Since the beginning of my career, I have been reaching and idolizing and fantasizing that the dream role for me would be in higher ed academia. I've worked my butt off. I've worked 4+ jobs at once, put my life on hold because I thought it would help me be more competitive to when there would one day be that opportunity in academia. And this week, after the opportunity finally presented itself, after 10 years of trying for it, I ultimately had to resign or decline the offer because of just unfair salary, unfair job requirements, unfair, just, it still breaks my heart. So I sat in my car and I cried at lunch after I gave that formal decline of my dream position. I just wanted to thank Fix SLP for helping me to acknowledge for the first time in my 10+ year career as a speech language pathologist to know my worth, to know that my body of work as a clinician has value, to help me understand a little bit better the beast of ASHA in regards to advocating for my fellow coworkers in our what we've worked so hard for. So thank you.
Pretty
I
sobering.
have things to say about this one.
Yeah. I, speaking to her right now, I just want to say your patients, they are the ones that if they could all collectively be here, would say thank you. And I have felt that fear, especially coming out of the pandemic, when you start taking a good look around and you're looking for something else. And I applaud, um, I applaud her for going after something that she wanted and dreamed of. And but sometimes those doors close, and sometimes you have to take a cold, sober look back at what you've built toward. But you just have to hold on to the fact that you have touched people's lives in a positive way, and you still can do that. And it's hard because the work is not what it once was in terms of its value to compensation or how rehab companies look at us. And we need to fight for that change. This is part of what this movement is about, but it's also to give people like you a voice. And we see you, we hear you. I've worked with these people. I've somewhat been in that position. I didn't want to go to academia, but it's very difficult. And we create this line. We call it minivan meltdown, and it's there for positive stories. It's there for sad stories, for funny ones. And my heart does go out to this SLP, and your patients have felt you. I can guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I've, it was hard, first of all, to kind of for sure know what she was talking about, but my interpretation was that she is a clinician, master's level clinician, working hard in the field, wanting someday to teach at the university level, either adjunct or maybe as a lecturer or clinic supervisor, something in that capacity where master's level clinicians are normally used. And most of our listeners probably know I am a PhD working clinician who left academia in February after 10 years. So I started my PhD in 2009, graduated in 2013, shortly thereafter, got my first full-time position, moved around a bit. Our family has lived in several different states. Sometimes we moved for a job for me, sometimes we moved for family reasons. So I've worked in several places. I've also worked as adjunct in a lot of places because COVID really opened up that door for me to do that. And I think that this isn't necessarily an SLP thing. I think this is a world that we live in thing, that PhDs and academia sometimes are glamorized in our head. And I think the perception is that people in academia make a lot of money. And while that can be true for people who have been there a long time, who have moved up the ranks, who sell products on the side, who have groundbreaking research, those things are true for sure. You know, there are people in our field in those positions who make a lot of money. There is a specific research scientist who is very well known in this field that I worked with. Wonderful guy, great mentor to me. And he island hops every Christmas, and I asked him, how do I do that someday? And he told me how. And it's, that's the less than 1% of the 1% that can achieve that. The truth is, in speech pathology, you make less money as a full-time college professor than you do as a working class clinician. And I'm going to share some numbers because I think it's important for us to talk about compensation. The year that I graduated with my PhD, I was working a solid 70 hours a week while I was doing my dissertation. So I included dissertation work in those hours. I was getting up very early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. Sometimes I wasn't getting home until 9, 10 o'clock at night because I was collecting data an hour away and also working just as far. And that year, I cleared $112,000 doing PRN only for 4 different companies. But I was working my butt off. When I left that job to take my first job, I was offered $42,000. That was the offer. $42,000 to Philadelphia, where the cost of living is higher. Now, I didn't accept that. I negotiated way up and was very successful at it, but I'm good at negotiating. Not everybody is. I had a colleague who was hired at the same time as me, and she was making the 42. After we moved from that job and I came to Ohio, when I started adjuncting, the year before I went back to full time at one university, I was doing adjunct at 4 different universities. On my W-2s, I was teaching 27 credit hours that year. So between January and December, I taught 27 credit hours of graduate level courses. And graduate level courses are paid out higher typically for adjuncts than they are undergrad courses. 27 hours, including graduate coordinator of an online program where I was also doing externship placements. I made $30,000. Everyone needs to keep in mind that academia is not the end all be all. And if you want to do it, you're doing it for the love of teaching, not for the love of money. And are we undervalued? Abso-frickin-lutely. Abso-frickin-lutely. But if you want to work in academia, you will get a lower offer. And we all need to be very aware of that. It does not mean that we don't deserve it. I'm not on the camp that we should be taking less offers. But that is the reality of the world that we live in. That's where we're at. These universities are making big bucks, and the professors are not the ones getting paid. Where does the money go? I don't know. Probably same type of situation as ASHA. I'd love to see a catering bill at some of the universities I worked for. And it breaks my heart because I think people have the expectation or the dream that I'm going to make it when I make it to academia, and that is not true. Because then once you get there, if you're full-time, part of your contract is service. And that's a fancy word for working for free. You're put on committees, you're supervising NISLA, you're doing community service. For me, it was like doing groups at other places. You're showing up to be on the parade float with the students. It is a full-time job and then some if you are a full-time employee. And if you're pursuing tenure, that service is counted. You can't get out of it. So not only do they underpay you, but then they have you do service too, as the word for free work. That's how this sometimes gets tied into ASHA in our field, because being ASHA president can count as service. Being the president of your state board can count as service because it's service at the university level, the local level, and the organizational level. It's not just like, service in one place, you're doing it all. So that is why that gives you a picture too of why sometimes these PhDs value ASHA so much, because they're giving their lives to ASHA too as a way to get tenure and promotion in their academic setting. That's how they move up the ranks. And when you get tenured, you get a raise. When you get promoted, you get a raise. There are 3 promotions in academia. You come in as an assistant professor, you work up to associate, and then you're full. Typically, tenure comes with that first promotion. Now, I never got tenured because I never stayed anywhere long enough, but I was able to move up to full by the time I left in February. So I saw those bumps in pay, but they're not even that big. So that very long rant, but I want people to understand that those are the numbers in academia, very realistically. I did a deep dive about 1.5 years, 2 years ago at this point with a colleague of mine where we were looking at national averages of adjunct pay for academia in speech pathology, and it is really low. I think it's like on average $1,000 per credit per semester. So if you're teaching a 3-hour graduate course over 16 weeks, you're getting $3,000 before taxes. And by the way, typically you're not making enough for them to hold federal taxes and you don't even know. So then you get screwed at tax time because you didn't know your university wasn't withholding taxes and you owe an arm and a leg. So you know, it's not a glamorous situation, but I'm really proud of her for knowing her value. And I imagine that's what to me, it sounded like she finally got that job offer. They were probably demanding more of her than she was willing to give. She was probably also working as a clinician. And so to me, in my head, she either had to resign as a clinician to take the job or take the job at the university and not make as much that she wasn't going to be able to do both. That was my perception of it, and I could have been wrong, but it is not the place where you're going to be paid your value, and it's not okay, but it is the reality we sit in right now.
We are
So,
projecting some here, but I also got the sense that it wasn't so much about finding a higher compensation job. At least I think for a lot of medical SLPs coming out of the pandemic, it sometimes was about just finding safe harbor
yeah.
to get away from, the the bullshit rehab companies that are out there that will call you in because you clocked out 2 minutes late and it puts your productivity off by 1 point, or having no caseload choices. Those are the kind of things I think a lot of clinicians are just looking for a place to land, and for some of them, academia may be it, and that's great. I think you bring a wealth of information and experience, which is something I didn't always have when I was in grad school, and that's a welcome thing. So perhaps it was just a case of wanting to make a transition.
Yeah. Money in academia really gets me fired up because you put in all those years to get that degree that, just like us making master's degrees, not making enough, not making our value for the degree level that we have. And you do not get paid more with a terminal degree. You get an SLPD, which is not a terminal degree either. We see this asked a lot online. If you want to work in academia, an SLPD is not a terminal degree in our field, and our programs need terminal degrees. Those are EDDs and PhDs. And when I go out and work as a clinician, my PhD does not mean a darn thing. Doesn't mean a darn thing. I make the same as everybody else. So, anyway, speaking of making money, Elizabeth, let's talk revenue.
Let's do
What
it.
do we got this week?
All right. So last week we talked about expenses. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go take a quick listen to some of the numbers that I was rambling on about. So hopefully I won't bore you guys too much with all these numbers this week either. So total revenue. So this is all coming from the financial statement that ASHA posts, that you can access it very easily if you just even Google ASHA 2023 financial report. I'll come up with this PDF file for you. So this week we're talking revenue. The first big one, of course, that comes with revenue is the member dues. So member dues, that's the CCC holder with the membership holder.
That is the 225 that we were
Yes.
paying last year, not the 250 that everyone is paying now. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking through these numbers. This is the 225 year that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that, that brings about 48.6 million to ASHA. That's a number we're going to be kind of looking at for next year, as well as, so they also separate the member dues from non-member certification. So again, non-member certification is just the CCC. You're not a membership. You're not getting any of the benefits. You can't get lifetime membership if you aren't consecutive member. This is just the CCC. The price at $199 that it was last year. So that was bringing us to over 900,000 for the non-member certification fees for 2023. And these are, again, these two numbers we're going to be looking at for next year. We're seeing more and more people aware we don't need to be a member of this association to do billing, to work in a school, to do all these things. We need, some of these instances need that CCC. And we've already seen some increase in the non-member certification fee category. So we were just looking at the 2022 financial report. So fixed SLP started in September of 2023. So only a few months of knowledge for some of these, for the SLPs that were able to possibly drop to non-member. So between 2022 and 2023, there was 720 more SLPs that dropped down to the non-member certification.
So this is steady growth. From 2021, you have 3,456 SLPs up until 2023 at 4,690. And so you had a jump one year of 513, the next it's 720 additional SLPs. This shows growth. I think this number will go way up.
Oh,
as
yeah.
Yes.
Everybody decides to join the Preston Lewis Club of SLPs, because that was 2021 when I said, peace, it's been real. And believe me, I have no regrets and may even go further.
unless that 90-minute infomercial by the person who benefits most from the sale of the product and the membership, unless she's very convincing and people
Yeah.
jump in there in those last 2 weeks, because again, nothing ASHA does is a mistake. There is a reason they are now widely advertising. You can pay until January 31st of 2024, and they scheduled that thing mid-January, after you've gotten through your holiday spending and you've sobered up a little bit and got
Yeah.
off a few LBs and you're feeling good. Now we're going to talk to you about sending us your money. They're not dumb. They know what they're
Well,
doing.
let me tell you something. Short of the Kool-Aid man jumping through the image of Vicky Williams and saying, "Oh yeah, there is no chance in hell that I'm going back."
I can't wait to leave. How many lawyers are going to tell me, don't drop it, don't drop anything?
Sure. Well,
If you sue them,
oh well, that's on you.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
come and go as I please.
I have 18,000 screens open, and we just got an email from someone using our contact form on our website that said, I just renewed my dues. I know. ASHA's now going green and not automatically sending out a paper copy of the membership card. Do they need our money for paper or not? They got away from the single-use plastic at the convention, and now they're not sending out paper. But also, how much of that is going green used as a PR move just to pocket more money? Because again, they raised dues. They raised
Well,
dues. So cost of
And to
paper is
say that
going
was
up,
for
but they're using
paper.
a lot less.
Point of order, Madam Chairman. I just want to
What?
point out also that, kind of like that line from Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And so let's keep in mind that the chosen ones, on the executives and everybody, they got the little plastic lanyard. Saw the
We heard
photos.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They got the big badge with the plastic thing. So apparently, only some people deserve plastic.
But
And
now that you're sending your money to ASHA at an increased rate to pay for the paper that they said, we didn't make that up. They said that was
I,
like the only example given in one of the live chats was, why are rates going up? Well, the cost of everything's going up, like paper. That's
And that was it.
paraphrased, but that's what was said. We'd play it back for you, but no recordings allowed. Uh, yeah, that's what they said. But now you can send more money to ASHA and use your own paper to go ahead and print that card if you're someone who still keeps it on your desk or your bulletin board. Okay, so what did we say? You gave us the revenue to watch. We're looking at those member fees, certified non-member fees. What else? What else? Talk to us about convention.
Yeah, so the convention for 2023 brought in a little over 6 million. This is where it gets a little tricky because on their expenses section, they really don't give a breakdown of expenses for the convention. So we really only see the revenue because there's other areas too, that there's a meeting and convention and conferences section that talks about expenses, but that can be anything, not just the convention. It can be any other meeting that they're expending on. So with the convention alone, it's bringing over 6 million. And that was with 15,000 attendees at the convention in Boston. So that's a significant number.
Big money.
I know a lot of people were talking about not going this year and boycotting going next year.
Big
We,
money.
yep. We need to see these numbers go down. They need their pockets to be hurting for us for them to listen to us of what we're asking for. If you would just listen to us in the first place, we would support the transparency.
So that's one way you can start thinking about bringing down that 6 mil number. What are you doing next year? Maybe you're holding on to your C's, but you're still listening to this podcast. You're still following the movement. You do agree with some or all of what we think and say, which we can still love you if you disagree. But maybe you do want to help make an impact here. Start thinking about your CEUs for next year. Where are you going to get those continuing education or professional development hours? Maybe you're not headed to DC, where ASHA is next year. Maybe you're headed to your state convention. Maybe you're going to direct your money to a small business owner who puts out really solid continuing educations. If you are in a state that allows PDH and you also have your CCCs or not, you don't have to do ASHA approved CEUs. Maybe you're going to a dental conference or an ENT conference or an education conference or, a physio conference or something that's going to help you learn the things that you are not learning at our ASHA approved CEU. Start thinking about how you want to learn in 2025 and where can you direct your money elsewhere? Where can that money go? So, if you're a business and you're paying for a booth at ASHA, maybe you loved it, but I've heard from quite a few vendors that they were not happy. Where can you spend your advertising dollars and said, hey, I got an idea. We could do some Fix SLP ads on this podcast. We are headed in that direction, but that's a way that we're going to creatively try to pay this team. So, hey, send us your money. We'll put it out there. We got some high numbers. Yeah, so start thinking about how can you make a difference in bringing down this number for 2025. That's a place where you could cut.
I'm sure there are plenty of state associations that would appreciate to have that money as well.
For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Speaking of education,
Ooh, good one.
so there's two categories on the revenue. There's education programs and products. Again, not very specific, but we can only guess what some of those are. And then continuing education. So both of those combined brings in about $10 million. So that's talking about the Learning Pass, the ASHA Connect, the CE registry, which we have talked about multiple times that we do not need the CE registry. We don't have to submit our hours to ASHA. If you get audited, make sure you have your certificates, make sure you keep track of your hours. Again, Speech Therapy PD has a free tracker. Use that.
Have either of you ever been audited? I
No,
have.
but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more this year.
Yeah, I was.
How is that process? It's just submitting your hours.
Fine.
Like it's,
Yeah,
I feel like
it
people
was.
are scared of it. Like
No,
they hear audit and they're like, oh gosh.
no, it was very. That would have been like around 2000 and maybe 14, somewhere in there, and it or 15. It was fine. It
Yeah.
was a couple of emails, send us your certificates, and a couple little synopsises. Wasn't bad.
Yeah. I mean, I do that with my EI certificate every 3 years.
Yeah.
I have to keep track of it all. You just send it all in. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And this speech therapy PD tracker, you can keep the thumbnails of your certificates in there. So if you're in a state where you have to provide those, because I've heard some states want that, you can print them with the thumbnail of the certificate. And again, we've seen people saying, oh, speechpathology.com does that, MedBridge does that. Yes, they do, but only for their hours. So we want to be clear. This speech therapy PD one tracks anything you want it to. You have to load it in, but at least it's a place to keep the thumbnail and the information, and it's open to everyone for free. You do not have to subscribe to their continuing ed to get the tracker. And this isn't a trick. They're not trying to pull you in. It's truly something that they made as a response. I talked to them and I said, I think fixers could use this as a solution. And they did it big. So they did also give us a coupon code. It's Fix SLP 58 for $20 off any subscription at Speech Therapy PD. Fix SLP will get some money too. You have other options.
But yeah, like with the learning pass, like don't pay for that learning pass. Do these
No.
other options. Let's see these numbers drop. $10 million for all this stuff that they're making from us.
I just learned this through our people engaging on our content, but someone from Australia had asked, what else does ASHA offer besides the convention? And I said, oh, they have ASHA Connect, which used to be another convention that they had, typically smaller. And I never went as an attendee, but I have gone as an invited speaker. And it was like a mini ASHA. It was just less people. They don't do that anymore. Some of our fixers said they still have it, but it's online now. And the cost didn't go down. They
Interesting.
charged the same for when it was in person, and
Hmm.
now it's just online.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they have the ASHA Connect still. I've been an invited speaker a couple times, and you guys, this is all prefix SLP. There is a whole story there about how I stopped talking for ASHA. I've done a couple mini conferences almost for dysphagia where it's a bunch of speakers all doing different topics over a week, and then there's Q&As you can attend. I've also done almost like live chats on certain topics. I've done some of those live chats and not been paid a dime. But if they're charging you to be there, they're pocketing all that money.
Yeah.
All that money.
Mm-hmm.
When you do those live things, like when I did the live conference and then showed up for those Q&As, I got a very small amount of money, and this was years ago, and they're still selling it in the Learning Pass.
Yeah,
So it's just
support the smaller businesses.
pocketed revenue over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again. Pocketed revenue.
And we've seen where they're going, where a lot of the expenses of where it's going. We posted it this week with their employees.
So they're
Um,
continuing ed. Again, we don't know how that's being broken up. For sure, the Learning Pass. For sure, the tracker. Another way we said, drop the tracker, track a different way. What else?
so we also have the special interest groups. That's bringing in almost 1.4 million alone. Again, something that is something you can take off that they like to
Uncheck that pre-check box.
Yeah, they like to check it right away for you. Here you go.
And so what do you
What's-
get with those 6? They have special publications. You used to be able to get some continuing education through that by reading the articles and whatnot. I'm not sure if that's still even a thing. And then there are the almost like chat rooms where you can go and have conversations through your ASHA website on different boards with people. But these are the same kinds of conversations happening on social media. So do you really need that? Probably not.
Seems a bit dated now when you think
Yeah.
about it. It's more of a badge of honor. I think OT has like 9 groups they do with AOTA for their special interests. That's great if you feel like it, adds something to you. But remember, more of those little boxes you've checked before, it may be checked on your invoice.
I'll tell you
Yep.
one, I'm not, even though I have to keep my CCC and membership, I'm not renewing the tracker. There are years I have been in 3 SIGs. I am not doing any SIGs this year.
What's the cost of the SIGs gonna be? I'm trying to look that up and I
I
can't
think it
find
went up to 45
And
or
what was it at?
48 before.
Yeah.
35,
30, 30,
30,
35?
15.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's 15 for students or 10 or 15 for students. It was 30-ish. I think it's 45 now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But
All
yeah,
just
let's
money,
see that
more
number go
money.
down.
Because also, who runs the SIGs? Volunteers. They don't get paid. SIG volunteers don't get paid. Free labor, service. Quote
Yeah, so
sounds
what are
fancy.
the expenses for these SIGs?
Service. You got to run those chat rooms.
Using AOL, dial
Hey,
up.
hey, I'm the AOL generation.
Those chat rooms, man. Another big, well, not big, but generating revenue is the CAA, so the Council on Academic Accreditation. That is an affiliation of ASHA. They accredit universities. They use ASHA's resources, and so they pay ASHA to use those resources.
Even though they're a part of ASHA.
Yes, they pay them.
That's just
Um,
like, I don't know what, it's probably not listed on there, but that's just like the CFCC, which
yes.
is the council that controls the CCC and the requirements for the CCC. And this is that web that's all tangled up. The CFCC makes the requirements for the CCC. The CAA makes the requirements for our programs, and ASHA owns them all.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit conflict of interest there, possibly,
Just a little bit.
just a
Hmm.
little. And I
And
think maybe that's where there's the fear with academia because,
it's interesting too, because the university I've left, I've been watching them spiral the drain, and they are now with zero terminal degrees on faculty. And I was thinking, well, someone could file a complaint to the CAA on that, right? Because so a colleague of mine we were looking that up on filing a complaint to the CAA. There's an anonymity waiver. So your complaint is to the CAA against an accredited program is not anonymous. And anyone can complain. But who do you think is best served to make those complaints? Students? Do you think students are going to file a CAA complaint against their institution that they're having a problem with or that they see something wrong with? Hell no, they're not. Because they're not anonymous. And retaliation is real. Let me tell you about retaliation. We'll make that into a whole podcast episode someday. So, the CAA, as Preston likes to say, the pointy headed academic elites protecting the pointy head academic elites. So now we have programs because my colleague said, well, there's another program not far from that one that doesn't have any terminal degrees. What? How's that even possible? Because the CAA just keeps taking money and taking money and taking money. There aren't even enough terminal degrees to staff these programs. That's okay, they'll still take your money. They'll take the accreditation fees, they'll take the reaccreditation fees. They don't stop. You know, occupational therapy has stopped. At the institution that I left, they had planned on opening an OT program because that area is in desperate need of OTs. Great solution. They can't get a program. It's going to be like 8 years before they can even be considered for a program because OTs, their accreditation found, oh, we're flooding the system. Maybe we should stop doing this. Why isn't ASHA doing that? Why? Follow the money. Follow the revenue. Money, 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 money. Every time, every year, you want to be accredited? Bill. But like it's free income. Again, why? Because those accreditors are volunteers. The people who come and do your site visit, those are volunteers. Although I do imagine their hotel and travel is probably paid, as it should be, but they're still making a profit.
yeah,
That's revenue we're talking about.
it's
Big
revenue that
business.
we can't change, but it's definitely
Also,
something.
you guys, there is no competitor. ASHA doesn't own the market. There's no competitor. There can be. Ideology has more than one accrediting body.
Mhm. The rental revenue comes from people leasing out the ASHA building. So I think there's 2 floors right now that are available for lease. Who knows how much of that building right now that is being rented? So that's, $500,000 right near there that they're getting for rental revenue on something that they work from home a lot. This
Mm-hmm.
empty building.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about that building next week, but
Yeah.
just some of that revenue.
I wish I would have written down everything that I wrote because it will be impossible with the amount of engagement that's been happening lately for me to go back and find. But there was a fixer who asked on one of our platforms, what streams of income does ASHA have? And we ought to put a
Mm,
post up about this again,
yeah.
especially if we can find it. Because I posted and then I kept thinking of things. Rental, conferences, learning pass, CE registry,
Corporate
member dues,
sponsorship.
corporate sponsorship, businesses doing booths at conventions, um, NISLA fees. NISLA's big business too. Is that listed separately on the 990?
No. Um, there.
The noms, the ASHA noms, you have to register to use it.
Oops.
Journal articles behind paywalls. SIGs, publications that they sell. There are so many things that ASHA sells to us. And ultimately, we're the product. People can circle back. We have 2 posts from like the fall, late summer, early fall, where you can protect your privacy and shut them down from selling your data because they're selling you too. We've been getting a few emails about people whose information has clearly been sold post ASHA convention because they're getting an influx of calls and emails. Well, you have to tell them not to do that because ASHA vendors do have an option of getting your information. I don't know if it's included or if it's included with like a certain level of payment or if they have to pay for it extra, but there are vendors from ASHA who have access to your information simply because you are there. And I don't know if you opt out of that when you register or if it's part of the privacy and data stuff that you have to turn off that we've posted about. Might be separate. Might be something when you register, you have to tell them not to do.
I think that's it for the big revenue generating things for ASHA that, again, we can make some impact with some of these numbers. I'm really excited to see what 2024 numbers are going to look like.
Give us that number one more time. Overall, what was the 2023 revenue for ASHA?
Overall, total revenue, $72 million.
$72 million. And I can already see the comments. Aren't they a 501c3? Well, they're a 501c4 nonprofit. That doesn't mean anything.
Nope.
It also has investment holdings.
Yep,
Oh,
we'll talk
yeah.
about that next week.
Elizabeth's all about the investment holdings.
Aside from high dollar catering, it's another fun thing you can do is let's go take your money and throw it into
Yeah,
the market.
let's gamble with your money
Let's get
here.
a little ROI here.
Yeah.
And we kind of posted that a couple months ago about they were able to get about 5 million from that investing in our money.
Yeah.
But there's been losses in previous years.
Yeah. I want to just cover one thing. Fix SLP is here for a lot of reasons. There are so many things we want to do. Our focus right now is getting autonomy for SLPs. Through that effort to gain that autonomy, we're educating all of you with information because information is power. And a lot of people have said in response to last week and in response to some of our posts, well, these are 990 forms. You can't really tell what's going on with a 990 form. And, there is some level of truth to that. But here's the thing, and here's my response to that. We have asked ASHA for financial transparency. We've done it more than once. We did it through letters to the board as our very first call to action. We did it in the fall through a petition to change the bylaws for financial transparency and fair pricing for the CCC and the membership. We followed the rules. We have played the game more than once, and they have refused to the point where we have now hired a lawyer on your behalf and on our behalf to force the issue. And so if they're not going to be transparent, all they've left us with is the 990 form. What else can we use? This is all we have to speculate on. And we're sure probably some of our speculations are wrong. People brought up the catering post. Okay, there could have been multiple uses for that catering convention, feeding politicians, whatever. But no matter what it was used for, the fact of the matter is they still spent that money. That's still how they're spending ASHA money. Why not talk about it? If they're going to leave us to speculate, then we're going to speculate. If they want us to have the correct information, they can just be transparent. That's not our fault. We're doing the best with what we have. And sure, again, our speculations could be wrong, but we just want to be clear about that. Our job right now is to expose this information, put it out there. You can make your own assumptions, you can make your own decisions, you can interpret the numbers different ways, but at least we're getting it out there. because this is the first time anyone's ever done this. No one has challenged ASHA on behalf of speech pathologists before. And that's not true. There was a lawsuit in the 70s, and that was successful. That's when they untied the CCC and the membership. You had to be a member to get the CCC. They untied it and flipped it. And then that's when they raised the cost of the CCC because they knew everybody had to have it. But that lawsuit wasn't on behalf of clinicians. That was a private clinician suing ASHA. So, audiologists have taken this on in a time before social media was what it was. This has never happened before. We're going to get the information out there. We're going to get the information out there as accurate as we can. If we make a mistake, hey, we'll say so. Mistake. We said you didn't need the CCC to be licensed in Delaware. You do, for the initial license. We fixed the map. Elizabeth and I were playing with the map the other day. So,
Many maps to play with.
yeah. So, yeah, here we are. So just know the 990 is all we've got because they're not giving us anything else. We've asked multiple ways, multiple times, and so have you. So if you've got other suggestions, let us know. Preston just said earlier before we started recording, has anyone asked them? Yes, Preston, we have asked them for many things.
That's the thing is that, you write the ASHA Action Center and it's like having a conversation with a Martian that speaks AI. And so, no, I encourage all of our fellow fixers to don't be afraid to ask your own questions too. We will ask some for you, but sometimes there's strength in numbers. Just, pepper the hell out of them, send them something. Ask them what was on the menu this year at the convention, and that'd be nice to know. Or, what did they serve in Chicago? Was there foie gras? Was, their lobster thermidor? I really want to get some recipes for next year. And perhaps I should attend my first inaugural convention to find out what the hell they're eating that costs $1.3 million.
Speaking of power in numbers, we did put out a post back on Thursday that we had a pretty big win. Pretty big win, I think. ASHA started cutting off membership benefits for folks when they called to drop their membership and or their CCC. And instantly, at first they were doing it without telling anyone. Then it became this is going to happen. Then it became an email with very strong words and red text. This will happen immediately. Do you want to proceed? And so we put it out there. Hey, this isn't legal in some states. They can't do this. You've paid for these benefits through 2024. Unless they're giving you a refund, you need to complain to your attorney general. So people did. People started doing that. People started pushing back. And guess what? This week, ASHA restored benefits to everyone who has dropped their membership for 2025. So if you didn't get the email, make sure you're calling about it. We've got a post. You can look for that post. It went up December 12th. It's like a glittery gold and black post where we talk about what happened and just celebrate it a little bit because we did that, you guys. Not we as in Elizabeth, me, Preston, and our team. We all did that. In fact, none of us on this team did it. None of us lost our benefits. No one. Some of our clinicians are still waiting with changes in their states to see if they can move forward with changing membership and Cs. And, we're all in the same position you are, but none of us have gotten to that point yet. It was you guys who started pushing back to the Action Center. It was you guys who started calling and writing your attorney general. It was you guys who said enough is enough and we are over it. And it worked. So good job, you guys. Good job.
We're getting our voices back.
Mm-hmm. Love that. All right, let's end right there. You guys, next week we're talking about investments. Come on back, have your calculator ready, and thanks for fixing it.
That's why we have the minivan meltdown line. Don't go around in this cloak and dagger meeting and tell everybody, no, don't record this. No one make an audio or video recording of this, but we're going to piss all over Fix SLP. We have a phone number. Call us.
Yeah, let us know what we're saying.
Call us anonymously. Bitch and moan about it. That's what it's there for.
You want Tina to bitch and moan to our minivan?
Yes.
Well, do not discriminate with our minivan meltdown line. That number is open for anybody.